The next piece to think about is going to be student loan interest. Okay. And again, I'm not a financial advisor. I wish I knew more about this while I was in physical therapy school and even beforehand, right? I just had to figure it out the hard way after I finished up with physical therapy school. And I think that's where most folks end up, right? Because you go into PT school because people say it's going to be a great career. It seems like it's a lot of fun. You do it because you want to help people. Then you rack up some tremendous debt and you have to figure out how to pay it off once you finish up with school, right? So this is my experience. It's probably gonna be different for every single person, but I went to UMDNJ, which is a public PT school in New Jersey, and I ended up with around $100,000 in student loans when I finished up. Okay. So tuition wasn't that expensive, but the cost of living, right? Plus books, plus a curriculum, plus capitalization of loans, because most of my loans were federal loans and they were not subsidized or mostly unsubsidized. So what happens is that over the course of your PT school, your loan amounts get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you graduate. So if you look at the price tag of a typical physical therapy school, it doesn't tell you the whole picture. All right. It'll tell you the tuition, but just keep in mind, if you're borrowing money from a bank or from the federal government, which you probably are, those numbers are going to get bigger over the course of time as interest rates are high, right? Mine were between 6 and 8%, right? So every year, those loans just get bigger and they get bigger and they get bigger and they get bigger, right? So when I graduated, I owed about $100,000 in student debt, okay? And initially, I had somewhere between 6 and 8% interest because all my loans were federal at the time, okay? And most of those were unsubsidized, all right? So once I graduated, I was actually paying over $1,000 per month just in interest, right? Let me say that again. I was spending over $1,000 per month just in interest. And what that means is that I had to pay $1,000 every single month just to break even. I wasn't even paying into the principal of the actual loan. So if I just threw $1,000 into it every month, my loan never shrunk. It stayed exactly the same. Okay. I think that's actually relatively common for most students I work with, right? If you're lucky enough to potentially have someone pay for some of your student loans, or maybe you work a little bit through school, you can make that number a bit smaller, which I highly recommend you do. But for a lot of folks, once they leave, they've got a bucket of a really deep bucket filled with loans they have to try to figure out how to pay, right? So if you do the math, this ends up being about $12,000 a year in interest, right? And if you think about it, if you have to pay $12,000 per year in interest, you probably have to make around $16,000 because you're going to be taxed on that $16,000. So automatically you give $4,000 of that, right, over to Uncle Sam, okay, to pay off that interest, okay? So if you're sitting there making $80,000 a year, right, automatically around $16,000 of that is just paying off interest, right? Not even paying off your student loans. Okay. And I've got to say, if you finish up PT school and you start a residency and you're making around $40,000 a year, you're going to owe $16,000 just in interest to the federal government. Okay. It's going to be very, very challenging to pay off your student loans with a low salary. Okay. And keep in mind, if you go into some sort of payment plan where you're paying less than the interest every single month, then your loans just get bigger every single year. Okay. So loans capitalize over the course of time. And then once you graduate from your PT residency, you actually have a bigger loan than what you started with. Okay. So it's very important to keep that in mind. So if you're able to not make payments on your loans for one full year and your loans grow by $12,000, by the time you finish up with your PT residency, you're now looking at $112,000 you have to pay back as opposed to $100,000, right? Plus any costs that you've had with the PT residency. So here's what I want you to do next, guys. If you enjoyed this video so far, I have an entire course. It's free. It's called the Fitness Pain-Free Mini Course. And we go over 3 lessons going to help you take a lot of this information that we went over so far and put it into practice. The first lecture is called Why We Need a Better System. So first and foremost, the way we treat fitness individuals, all right, athletic people in the gym from a physical therapy perspective is pretty much broke, okay? So we need a better system to serve the folks that are in the gym, that get hurt, they want to get back to training, all right? Lecture number 2 is called 7 Reasons Why People Get Hurt in the Gym. And essentially, we have to know the reasons why people get hurt in the gym so we can keep them safe in the future, right? And when they get hurt, we have to know why and how to get them back to training in the gym. Okay. So a thorough understanding of this is very, very important. I actually have a really cool infographic that goes along with this lecture that you get for free as well. And lastly, we go over a case study of how to get someone out of pain and back to training. So these principles are all phenomenal, but we don't actually put it together and you don't understand how to create a program to get people back in the gym and keep them safe for the long term, then we lose, right? So I'll put a link in the show notes for this. It's a fitness pain-free mini course. Definitely check this out.